Hello and welcome to the Powered by Rock podcast, where we're going to be speaking with the SoCal punk band Radical Radical today. They have a new album out called I Feel Like I Want To, which is the debut album. And we're going to be speaking to the band right after this. You're listening to the Powered by Rock podcast with your host, Isaac Kuhlman. The Powered by Rock podcast was created to help showcase some of the best rock musicians in the world and to pass on to future generations the rock music that has inspired rock fans around the world for decades. We want listeners to be able to hear great stories and life experiences directly from their favorite artists, as well as dig deeper into music theory and talk rock like no other show you've ever heard. This isn't about looking cool, it's about getting real and having a great time. Without further ado, let's start the show. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Powered by Rock podcast. To say that I'm excited about this episode today is probably an understatement, because I'm going to be speaking with Radical Radical about all the awesome music and plans they have coming up. And I'll also pry into their innermost thoughts and memories to dig up some really cool stories as well. So welcome to the show, guys. How are things?
I love that. That's awesome. It's going well.
Yeah.
I
think we're on season. You know, the band just had a full length out and playing shows coming up this month and next month, and I don't know, it just kind of feels like a wide open sort of who knows what's going to happen next kind of thing, you know.
Awesome. So if anyone is listening to the podcast and thinking, well, who the heck is Radical Radical? Well, I probably should mention that Adam Lohrbach here, who is the lead singer and bassist and architect of the band, is also a founding member of the Orange County punk band Homegrown, which is one of my favorite bands from when I was in high school. I listened to Act Your Age and Kings of Pop for many years, still do regularly. And if you would have told me 20 years ago that I'd be hosting a rock podcast that I got to interview Adam from Homegrown, I first would have said, what the heck is a podcast? But then once you explained that to me, I would have said, that's pretty damn awesome. So thanks for doing this show today, guys. And thanks, Adam, for all the great music. I've listened to you for years.
Nice, man. Yeah. And back then, right, if you even knew something about that, you'd be picking up your corded phone and calling your friends, or maybe paging some people to let them know. Times have changed, man. Times have changed. Well,
so it's great to have you here and catch up and talk about the new project and how it all came together and how you all collectively kind of came to add experience to the band. So I believe initially this was just a solo project from just you kind of putting out some new stuff and figuring out what you wanted to do musically. Is that pretty much correct, Adam?
Yeah, that's right. Do you want the long answer or the short answer?
Be as long and specific as you want.
Well, it's kind of a loaded question, right? It did start with me, but it didn't really start out as any intention of being a band, any intention of being a, pop punk sort of rock, indie rock sound, any of that. It was honestly just me writing poetry as a response to a really dark season. I went through depression for probably a good year or so, and it was kind of a way of digging myself out of that grave, so to speak, and sort of putting word and language and art to it, because it's kind of what I knew to do, but it wasn't really lyrics or songs. But as I was coming out of that season, and shout obviously to my family, to a lot of my close friends who helped me through that, my faith too, all of this combined, sort of just stepping out of this now, I felt like, man, it almost felt like a message, like it could be helpful. And I just sort of started twisting some of those lyrics into a pop punk sound. And it was, Isaac, it was instantaneous. It was effortless. Because back in the old days when I was like in Homegrown and stuff, I'd write a lot of music and melody, and then I'd have to shove lyrics into it. And it was like, it totally worked, right? But I would it would be so hard to try and, what I want to say. Gosh, this is going to be forever. Is this going to be stupid? Is it going to be timeless? Does it need to be timeless? You overthink it. How does this word fit into the melody? All of those things, it's a little bit tougher. But when you already know what you want to say and you're passionate about it, then you just kind of make a melody around it, and the music sort of finds its place around what you want to say. And so that's kind of a different approach, Radical, and honestly very refreshing. So I'm on a response to a dark time, and hopefully, it was hope for me. It was therapy for me, and hopefully it's helpful to other people too.
Yeah.
And fun, fun music too, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. I do want to touch on that because, in some of the songs, like I feel like I want to, and I'm not okay, and that's okay. You definitely talk about the emotional side of not just, just being a human, but it seems to highlight the fact that you suffer from depression and anxiety and stuff. How did you come to find out like that was something that was going on, or did you always just kind of have that within yourself and had to fight that over the years?
No, honestly, it was when I turned 40. So, confessions here, I'm an old man.
Well,
And
holy shit, because I'm about to turn 40 in like 12 days, so you're scaring me.
okay, it's about to get real, bro. No, hopefully you're fine or whatever. But, for me, it was when I turned 40 and just shortly after that, I think when you enter that sort of that season of life, you become a little bit more introspective. You start thinking about where you've been, where you're headed. And there are certain tools, things like, I don't know if people might have heard of the Enneagram, certain things like self-awareness tools to discover how you respond, the way you do, how you interact with people, what are some core motivations for you, some of those things. And I realized there's a lot of things that I never really saw in myself that were motivating me or driving the things that I did or the way I responded to conflict and all this stuff. And I realized, oh my gosh, I'm figuring out things that I felt like at the time. I felt very ashamed, embarrassed to figure out about myself this late in life.
Yeah.
Now confronted with who I really was versus who I should be. And I just got very depressed. I got very upset with myself. I'm pretty disillusioned with some aspects of my childhood and stuff. And honestly, I didn't look at myself with any kindness or grace. I was just like, dude, you blew it. How did you not know this? And it just spiraled, Depression talks to itself. It
Sure.
it feeds itself, and it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work, and for me, a lot of prayer, and just it's a fight, Depression, you can't passively sort of leave depression. You have to take initiative. You have to stay active and stay in the fight to get out. So yeah, it was rough.
And it's tough to face too, because like you said, you have to see what the flaws are within you and then be willing to actually change them, because a lot of people just stay comfortable doing the same things, even if it's harmful or painful to their self-psyche or their confidence or their even physical ability to do anything. It's just easier not to confront it, right? Because most people don't like confrontation. So to actually be able to look at that and say, I'm going to actually do something about it is a huge, huge deal. And you can tell through the lyrics of this album and through the way that you actually put the passion in that you're coming from a very intimate and personal place where, all the homegrown songs have a little bit of intimacy and personal aspect to them, but nothing on this level, nothing to the point. I mean, most of them are joke songs or about, girls and relationships and stuff like that. But This is so much more personal than anything I've ever seen from, not just you, but from most bands that put out anything. So I think it's a very good perspective.
That's very kind to say. Thank you, Isaac.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about how you guys kind of got together, because obviously once you had the songs and, started working it out, let's talk about kind of how you guys got together, what was the journey to find the rest of the band, and how did Taylor, who's on the show with us today, how did you kind of come in and get it from your guys' perspective? Because, there's always going to be people that say, oh, well, this guy was in this band and this guy was in this band, but, whether or not they're in a band or not, they still have to want to come and join and play in a new band, right?
That's a good point.
You can probably talk. You can share some of that. Yeah.
I had kind of moved to California a few years back and got plugged in with Adam. We both play at church together, and quickly realized that we had similar, a little bit different, but similar kind of musical backgrounds. And I grew up in kind of like aggressive indie rock bands, I guess.
Okay.
Heavily influenced by bands like La Dispute, but also a lot of like Fueled by Ramen bands and things like that.
Gotcha.
And so we kind of had similar, still some pop punk roots and just like punk roots and stuff that we related to each other musically really, really well. And we play with musicians of all kinds of backgrounds. And so to have other musicians of a similar background, it just kind of made a quick connection there. And so when he started doing this project, I was like, oh, I'll play live for you. And I only ever played like other than like in church, like in growing up in bands, I'd only ever played bass in bands. And so I kind of assumed I would play bass. And then he was like, oh yeah, cool. So here's the guitar parts. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. And so I started working on the guitar parts, and it was just an easy connect in that regard for me, and exciting to be able to play shows again and stuff. And
I mean, we both known about, I say the scene because back in the day, it was just felt like it was all sort of emo, indie, pop, like punk, rock, right? There's all certain, like, you had like sounds you like, but there's a lot of like family community than all of it, or like a knowing of who's coming through town and all that stuff.
Playing shows with bands all over the spectrum too.
Yes, exactly. And he was in a band, Love Robot, right? He was in a band, Love Robot, great band on the East Coast too. I think you can find all the Love Robot stuff too. Like on
most of it's still on Spotify and Apple Music and things like that. It's
really, really good music. But anyhow, so you know how that goes. Like when you have those bands in common, like I could say Lagwagon, right?
Yeah.
That would probably, or the Starting Line, that will probably mean nothing to like 95% of anyone. But then when you hear someone, oh yeah, shows, it's like instant connection, right? It's like, aside from being friends, like we had the connection of that type of stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And then obviously,
I think if you know Lagwagon, you know that you have good taste in music.
Hey man, yes. Propaganda, all those bands, right? So, and then, I'd been in New Year's Day, which was the band after Homegrown, and had played. I'd done studio work and stuff like that with Russell, and then obviously Anthony being in the band in New Year's Day after I left New Year's Day. Just get back in touch. Like I've been in touch with them for a while, I pastored Russell's wedding and stuff like that. So like we've had some pretty deep connects anyhow. And so when this actually started getting some traction, it just made perfect sense to say, hey, Russell, you're like an amazing drummer. Anthony, amazing bass player and guitar player, by the way. Would you consider joining? And it was immediate, like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah. So you got a drummer and 3 bass players, then you converted them all to guitar.
It's true.
Yeah. At rehearsal.
And I'm not a drummer.
At rehearsal the other day, Anthony told me that the same thing I thought, where I like assumed I'd play bass in the band. He told me he thought the exact same thing. when Adam asked him to join, he's like, yeah, I just assumed I'd be playing bass.
It is a common thing with rock bands of you got enough guitar players, you just need to throw somebody in at bass and get a good drummer.
There you go. And we've got a good drummer.
Ironically, we're all bass players who like have figured out how to play guitar.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's dig into the new album because, like I said, I think it is a very personal, intimate collection of songs, but based around that pop punk foundation. So it makes it relatable to anyone who listens. It's not like, there's some pretty deep, dark, personal, intimate indie rock bands out there that'll just make it, a bunch of noise in the background or, clash some trash cans together and make this really weird experimental sound. So it's like, yeah, that's really personal, but I don't want to listen to all that stuff. It's just like they're doing it for this cathartic release, but it has that same confessional type of catharsis in it, but it definitely does. And it does have a lot of autobiographical insights about emotional discovery, personal relationships, and even being a father. So it's definitely a nod to the fact that you can't stay 20 years old forever. Right. But, it is still relatable because it's got the catchy hooks. It's got the amazing vocals, by the way, cause you even don't do falsetto on this one, which I didn't know you could do, which is pretty awesome. So kind of tell me about what is this kind of journey of that, producing the album, recording the album, but also just kind of putting it all together and thinking about it in terms of what the last 20 years has been like.
Yeah, honestly, this feels like a life's work. And I certainly have ambitions for future records for Radical. I'd even say I probably have like 80% of the next record, like the lyrics, which again, writing lyrics first, that's something to say first, is already kind of written. Honestly, you get older, like you said, you kind of have to be genuine to who you are. Like, who you are in the present moment. And for me, like I realized a lot of times, even with the homegrown stuff, right, there was personal moments in some of that writing, which was true convictions of where I was. but a lot of it was also me sort of, if I'm honest, a little disengaged with myself and more engaged with the world around me, and sort of writing from the perspective of, yeah, I see this and I see how you're hurting or whatever. And I sort of entered into the story of others and was able to kind of feel it, and write it, if that makes sense.
It's
And
like
this one was
character writing, right? You're building it from a character that isn't necessarily you.
Yeah, still true, but just not that personal, and honestly, I don't know if I'd have felt released in my younger years to say that, this sounds sad, but I don't know that I said, like, am I really that important or worthwhile to share something so deeply personal? Like that probably to me almost would have felt like presumptuous, maybe even conceited. I don't know. Like I said, I was wrestling with a lot of internal things, that I was processing later in my 40s. But at this point, I realized in life, I'm like, the people who are the most vulnerable with me and are the most like open and honest with their brokenness, where they're at, are the people that I come the closest to, or the people I feel like have a right to speak into my life. So I knew I needed to be that person. Like there's songs like Middle-Aged Masterpiece, right? What teenager is going to relate to that? I thought, but who's going to relate to that? I'm singing a song that almost demographically, like, it excludes this whole thing. And I'm like categorizes, this is for you if you're 40, 50, whatever. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna constrain myself to that type of thinking. This is genuinely how I feel. And I think just in that genuineness, it's going to connect anyway, because I can hear country songs and things about experiences, stories, stuff in music that has no relation to me, but I can enter into that story and the truth of it, and and that just raw expression, and I'm in. And I may not totally relate, but I'm in. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so Radical is kind of, in a sense, it's that offering,
Yeah, and it's interesting because you say, like, as a young person, you probably don't relate to it as well. But I remember being young and hearing Billy Joel's Piano Man or Bruce Springsteen's Glory Days and thinking, that's how I'm going to be when I get older. I'm going to think back on all these people that, all they ever thought about was high school was this great thing. And after that, like, all they ever talk about is how cool they were in high school. And I'm like, I never want to be that. So like, I'm relating to these 40-year-old guys as like an 18-year-old. So there is some relatability to that. It's like, seeing somebody who has lived through that and just understanding it. Not everybody's going to have that experience, but I personally, did enjoy that. And bands like Cursive, I don't know if you even know Cursive, but Tim Asher, he writes really aggressively about, the regrets he's had over the year. And it's like, I don't have the same regrets, but damned if that doesn't hit really hard when you listen to him talk about the regrets that he has. So it's very interesting. And when you get personal, it tends to become a lot more interesting.
Agree, man. Agree.
Yeah.
And to say there's a place for songs that are just dance tunes or songs for a moment. It's not like everything has to be, you're bleeding out and, through the musical notes, right? There's a place for everything, but I think there is just something that there's just there's a level of respect for just being sincere about where you're at. Right.
Yeah. And that's not to say that you're all your songs are like super sad, because they're not sad.
Yeah.
They're reflective, right? So they're
reflective.
They're
That's a better way. Yeah.
They'll get people dancing.
Hopefully you feel better after listening to it, right? You feel better. You don't feel like worse. Like, man, life sucks. Like, hopefully there's a sense of like hopefulness and expectation for what could be and what the next steps are. That's what I hope people would leave with the record.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to put it. And I like that because, as much as things affect us, we don't get broken by them. We either don't deal with them or we learn from them and grow. Right. So that's how I think people think that you're broken by the mistakes that you make, but that's a total mindset thing, that if you think that you're not broken, you're just in the same position you always were. You can take that and make yourself better. So I like that way to think about it. So
well said. Love that.
Thanks. So then you have songs like Misfit Toys and like you said, Middle-Aged Masterpiece, that basically talk about how you aren't perfect, how you wouldn't really change, but you wouldn't really change the things you've done to get the result to where you are now. So that's kind of like that like, stuff happens to you. How do you respond to it? Right. So do you ever look back and think like, if a couple of things were differently, maybe things would be different now, better now, or, it's kind of like a pretty human thing to think about, but some people don't want to think about it much for various reasons. So do you ever have that moment?
You can share it too. I'd say, right, everything leads you kind of to where I think you already said that really well, how it's what you do with those moments, with those feelings, with that brokenness. Like, you know, it doesn't define you, but it helps. It doesn't define you, but it helps refine you, right? In that sense. But certainly I would be lying if I didn't say that there weren't regrets that I had, you know, and, you know, not to get in a huge laundry list of things, but, you know, some of the ways like I acted in my younger years and treated people, you know, I wish there's some things I wish I could change and do better. Again, it all gets, there's redemption in it, but still, when you hurt people, right? And I'd rather not done those things. I would have rather in the past been more appreciative. Like I think of like the homegrown years, right? I mean, think of how formative that was for me as a musician, even where I'm at now on Radical, like a greater appreciation even for what was, or being on tour. And I did appreciate it, but you know what I mean? Like really taking it in, like being present in the moment and stuff like that. I just didn't know, you know, I wasn't aware enough of who I was as a person. And, you know, you just kind of, you just sort of ride in the cloud in a sense, you know.
I think that the line that they say is the youth is wasted on the young, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yes. So, you know, things like that, sure, you know, to the degree that I'm hurting people and stuff like that, I definitely have regrets. But I'm so grateful for, you know, the fruit that what's come out of stuff. But
I was just joking before coming in for this podcast. I was joking with some people, just like batting stories around. And I was like, yeah, man, I sucked when I was younger. like I look back at things, I'm like, I was the worst. Like things I said to some people and stuff, and just like general attitudes, like arrogance and stuff that I had. And like you said, like I wish I hadn't been like that. I wish I'd been like a better person at times. But at the same time, you can't live with shame for those things, because you can't change them. I mean, you can go back to those people and try to like
reconcile
and like bring whatever healing is possible.
Yeah.
But you can't, like, those things happened.
Yeah.
Whether you're proud of them or not. And so, like you said, like you just you have to learn from them. You have to grow from them, and you have to like just learn to be better. I remember having a conversation with someone one time, and I was like just starting at this point to like get on a little bit of this journey of like personal growth and stuff. And she said to me, she goes, oh, I'm pretty good where I'm at right now. I don't really feel like I need to grow. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like, like, especially like being on the journey of it, it was like, it was like familiar. When I like look back at it, I'm like, oh yeah, like a lot of people have that mindset. But the fact that she put it to words so confidently was almost shocking.
Yeah. And
highlighted even like the fact I'm like,
more where you're at.
You really do need to grow, actually. But like we all do, it's just like it's coming to that like realization of no matter how far along the journey you are, like, you know, I'm sure you would say now, like, you haven't arrived.
No.
Right? Like there's still growth. There's still things that I do and say that hurt people.
Yep.
And like I try every day to do less of that and grow and practice the things that make that second nature, and like be conscious of the things that hurt people and choose to do the things that don't, so that I can become unconsciously competent in the things that are healthy and helpful.
Yeah, and you know, you can put makeup on your face to make yourself, you know, more attractive or whatever, but you take away all the, you know, the physical appearance stuff, and if you look at somebody's like soul or whatever you want to call it, their inner personality, you can't put makeup over that. You actually have to change that structurally or fundamentally to actually make that better.
Yeah. My wife is an esthetician, so she does skincare. So I would say, like, you can put makeup on it, but that won't treat the issue. You actually have to do the skincare to make the skin healthy.
Yeah, exactly right. So the song Misfit Toys is a reference, I'm sure, from the Island of Misfit Toys from the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer cartoon. Maybe people don't know that thing still exists, but it's been there for like 65 years or whatever it is now. It's kind of been synonymous with being an outcast and finding a community of outcasts as well.
Yeah.
What in the, oh my God. Nice.
See, the other head's in the back. You can see.
Yeah. From the video.
In the music video, that's what my son wore.
That's awesome.
Fits you pretty well.
So how do you think that status of misfit toy, because you obviously talk about it in the song, but how do you think that status applies to now versus it did when you were younger?
Well, see, and so everything like lyrically is it's embedded with me. Does that make sense? Like my whole childhood, it's like, honestly, it's my whole life almost in a record. Like there's a lot of my life in it. I grew up with those movies, like every Christmas time those would come around. I love the time lapse stuff, Tim Burton stuff. Like I love all of that time. I was always drawn to it. And so I'd always watch those shows. And that one,
I still don't know how they have the patience to do that, by the way.
To do the little.
I tried to make one time.
Did you?
Yeah. Oh, and I was young. I was probably hadn't even turned 13 yet. And it's like, little like action figures and stuff. And I tried to make. It was probably the finished product was probably 15 seconds long.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's like that feeling like a misfit, like feeling like you're on the wrong island.
Yeah,
that's kind of the feeling. Like, so like those moments, like that movie and that moment in the movie just resonated with me, like my feelings, because so much I was digging up even from my childhood, teenage years, and when that song was being written, like when I was thinking about that, misfit, I feel like I'm on that island right now, and the song just sort of started evolving, like thinking through those childhood feelings, thinking about where I was now, where I wanted to be, and so it was kind of embedded into it, Some of the stuff like the artwork and things like that, some of the video stuff, there's like old Atari systems, there's things from my childhood. The music video was recorded in my parents' garage.
Oh, wow.
The outdoor scenes that we were walking in was recorded in, I was born and raised in Santa Ana, California. And so there's like a little art district area over by where I lived where I'd often go like skateboard and stuff like that. So even the location I wanted to be like meaningful to like where I grew up as a kid, like the things that were common to me. And so everything about it was, not everyone's going to get that. I'm not going to be like, oh, that's the place where Adam, but for me as an artist, I see it and it has deep meaning for me. And some people catch it, some won't care. It doesn't matter. But to me, I'm just trying to
Easter egg trivia stuff that, that you're building out there that you can tell people, hey, this is a little trivia. If you ever do a radical trivia night at a pub,
a little pop-up video. Remember the pop-up videos?
Exactly. Yeah.
This is where
that was like my favorite thing back in the day, getting all that trivia behind the video,
behind the scenes info.
Cool. Actually, Misfit Toys would be a great one to do that on.
Would be good.
Yeah.
So I'll ask one more question about a song and then we'll talk about some other stuff here. But the song Hazel, I have to ask who that's about, because it seems like it's about a young woman or child, but it seems a bit confrontational as well. And it's hard to pin down. And I know you don't have any daughters. You have three sons, correct?
3 boys. Yeah.
Yeah. So who's that song written for?
Focus.
Is it your eyes?
Yeah.
Your eyes.
It's me.
Okay.
It's me.
Excellent.
So Hazel. Yeah.
Because it starts out with like a soft piano part. So it almost sounds like it's going to start out like a love song and then kind of gets confrontational. And just like many of the other songs, and they're like, hello, my name is Adam, or whatever the actual song title is. You're looking at yourself, right? So you're looking in the mirror at yourself, talking to yourself. So it's great.
I was gonna say that one too is like it's almost like a because faith is a big part of my journey too. So it's almost like a conversation almost with God with me. Like, I'm here to crash this pity party. I'm here to rain on your black parade. I'm here to finish what you started. Because you and I both know what's at stake. That type of thing. It's like people could take that as just a conversation between who they really are and their ego type thing too, obviously. But for me, it's almost like a, it's like God talking to me saying, hey, let's finish this. You're not stuck. We're moving. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
And I'd never have known the color of your eyes until just now. So that's a good catch.
Yeah. And see, that's a fun thing about art, right? Like there's, I think there's not everything being so overt, right? Things being poetic, so that there is something that you can find yourself in a way that it's not so pigeonholed, right?
Yeah.
It's like, this means this and this. It's like, no, this could, it hits me this way, right? People have different interpretations of songs and stuff. And I think like a song like Hazel has room for a lot of that too. But for me, you know, it meant that for me.
Yeah, it's super catchy too, because the hook gets stuck in my head for like 3-4 days after I listen to it. I'm like, all right, I'll sing that over and over and over.
And real quick, and I'll tell you what I love about that song, because it's in the key of B, right? Yeah, B, and then it goes to a G minor, and then the hook goes to the major third, right? Instead of doing the minor third.
Yes, yeah, it does a major chord on the third.
Hazel, hey,
which is weird. The third
which is weird.
Minor.
It should be minor, but it's major. But it fit the melody I wanted, and I was like, "Ooh, that's cool," because it's a little odd, but it helps. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sometimes songwriters, you try really hard to put in the odd because you want to impress, or you want to have more to offer than just a standard progression. You want to do some augmented or some diminished or some passing chord, because it just changes the song. It feels more advanced and whatever, you know, like I have those feelings sometimes in my writing. I'm like, this is too simple or whatever. But this song has some weird chords, some weird stuff in it.
A magic 7 in there too.
Yeah, there's a magic 7 in there. There's harmony, bass line. There's a lot of weird stuff on it. Yeah. But it's not for the sake of weird. It just fit the melody, you know.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad you like it. I talked with Angelo Celli from Bracket about that exact same thing, how they constantly take, like, how some bands will actually do it on one song, but they'll do it on every single song, right? So like, it's just incredible to hear them harmonize with the weird chords that they throw in there.
Okay, so shout out to Bracket. Some of their earlier stuff, that was one of the first times I got exposed to the odd chords, and some of those things that I learned from Bracket on their early records got infused in some of the writing midstream for Homegrown. So thank you, Bracket. You may have never known that.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the recording process of this actual. Well, let's talk about the production and how it all came together, and then how you guys are now, you know, I would say not essentially touring, but be able to play live shows. So how did the process come together for turning these songs into a full band's production? Because you have to take the ideas from a single person, transform it with the rest of the band. And then how did you guys actually record the album? Did you guys go into a studio? Did you guys do it yourselves? Did you work with anybody on the actual production side?
Should I take that part and you take the band part?
I'll take the band part.
Yeah. Okay, so right now I'm recording. This is my studio. So it happens to be my office where I work as well. And the entire record was recorded in this room. Awesome. So everything. So on this, obviously not live, then that goes out with saying, but I recorded everything on the record. So, you know, programming drums, bass, guitars, mixing, mastering, all of it was done here. So,
and I had a feeling that was the case, because a lot of the stuff sounds like you kind of did it yourself. No, I'm not saying that it's bad. It's you can kind of see the layered progressions as you go through and listen to it. Whereas if you play it all together as a band, you probably have a bigger sound together, because somebody will want to like turn their volume up or do this or that. But you know, even when you bring it down to just a bass line, and you're actually playing some pretty intricate bass lines and while singing, and I'm like, did he actually play that while singing, or did he just play that and then learn how to figure out how to sing to that later? Because it's pretty intricate. So is that kind of how you did it? I mean, just one at a time? Like, did you start with bass and lyrics, or did you start with guitar and lyrics, or how'd that go?
I would start with drums, and then for me, songwriting, when I write a song, I hear the whole thing done. I don't know how to explain that. As soon as I start writing a song in my head, I already hear the guitar parts, I hear the bass, I hear the strings, I hear the harmonies. For me, it already sounds like a finished thing. So I'm just building. Okay, well, I want drums. I want to lock in the bass with the drums. I know the guitars are going to layer in this way. Then I might add a little bit of like percussion, like ear candy stuff. You know, you get the vocals, thinking of some delay throws that might sound cool, some panning production, you know. So for me, I kind of sort of build up from the drums up, and then think about how you're going to create some more interest for the song, and make sure that the song's constantly evolving. For me, like I say, that's where my like ADD plays to an advantage for me
Yep.
because if you listen to the song,
every chorus
and
is
these guys have to suffer through this because if you listen to every verse and every chorus of every song, there's no copy pasting things or whatever.
Yep.
The riffs will almost always change for the guitarist. And for the bass too, for the most part. If you listen to the record, someone listens to it, there is no verse 1 sounds like verse 2. There will be at least 2 to 3 changes in the instrumentation playing, and then changes in the harmonies that come or harmonies that aren't there. So that for me, I want people to experience the song and feel like if I want to hear that part again, I gotta go back and listen to it. It's gonna come and it's gone. Not just like, oh, you copy paste that and put it in 3 choruses and you called it good. I can't do that. It's something's got to be special as the song moves to where you want to keep listening.
And like vocally too, like different, even just like a single note, right? Like where it's just like a different inflection on chorus 3 because the song is like culminating.
Yep.
And so, okay, so Taylor will answer this. Everything's written, right? They said, yeah, let's do this. Let's play. And then, okay, now how do we play?
Yeah.
How did we figure this out?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Modern technology is so awesome. So we use this app called Prime from a company called Loop Community. And so I'm able to take all of the stems from the record and bounce them down and put them into this app, and then add us to like a set list that's got all the songs on it.
It's like a team share thing.
Yeah. So I can pull up Prime on my phone or iPad or whatever, and take a look at the stems and say, oh, I want, let me solo the guitar so I can figure out part. Okay, cool. Now I need to rehearse. Let me actually pull out the guitar. I don't need so much of the backing vocals. I'll pull those down, and it's
they
like
get to mix it themselves,
so I can pull things down. It's got like a click, a metronome in there. It even has, if you like segment the song within the software, it'll even give you like a guide track that tells you when like the chorus is coming or the verse, the bridge. Like, it's pretty amazing. You have it there.
What? Sorry, I can't. Are you saying it's Prime?
Yeah, it's like Optimus. It's Prime.
Okay. Now I'm not going to get in any trouble with any copyright or anything. Right?
Oh, okay. Anyhow, you can solo out whatever instrument you want.
That's awesome.
That's
very cool.
Okay, now turn off so you don't get him in trouble. What are you doing? Get out of here. Go.
That should be fine as long as you give me permission to have it being recorded.
You have permission.
Yeah.
Excellent.
You have permission.
It's on air. It's official.
Yeah.
It's a verbal contract.
There you go.
Yeah, that was the song Hazel, obviously, in the background.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we got those tracks, and we're able to learn them kind of all at home because Russell and Anthony don't live quite as close to us. Mm-hmm. We live very close to each other, and we rehearse here.
Mm-hmm.
We see each other all the time, obviously.
And so, but they're close to each other, but 30, 40 minutes away, depending on.
So basically on a different planet. I mean, in California, that's far away.
It is, yeah.
and so we're each able to kind of practice and learn our parts, and then come together. And rehearse. And I mean, the first time we got together to rehearse, the benefit of technology like that is that I'd never been in the same room as Anthony and Russell before our first rehearsal, and we plugged in and played a song, and
that's awesome.
Sounded great.
It was like, that's great. Let's go to the next song. And we'd never played before as a band. Yeah. But I mean, of course, that speaks to their level of musicianship and doing the homework, or whatever, because everyone at home made sure they knew their parts. Yeah. So it was pretty effortless. I mean, everyone's just such conditions. It makes it easy.
Yeah. I mean, it feels good to play with other professionals too, because I've played with people where I had to drag people up and try to make them play better and like force them to be good at their instrument. And then I played with people who are just good and pick it up right away. And I'm like, oh my God, this is refreshing. So I can imagine that's got to feel good for that first practice for sure.
We know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So another thing I want to dig into, you guys have been talking about this well, is you've actually become a worship pastor over the years, Adam, and obviously it's active in your life, and I was just curious if there was something that ignited that that kind of faith, or even just ignited you to take a leadership role in your faith.
Yeah, I think I gave my heart to the Lord when I was a teenager. And then once I got in like the band, like homegrown years and stuff like that. And this is not casting any shadow or shades on it, whatever. I had a personal convictions, whatever. And then, you kind of go the way of the buffalo. I'm like, you start just getting in that scene, you start doing whatever. And then I just sort of cast my faith to the side, and I'm like, whatever. Like I'd feel little pricks every once in a while. Like, that's not cool. Like that's not you. You just kind of override it over time until like a lot of my life sort of fell apart. Like my girlfriend broke me up with me at the time, we're torn 10 months out of the year. I have nothing really to come home to. And so I kind of hit like a low in a sense, and just conversations with God again, like, man, what's happening? And he's just speaking to me going, what are you doing with your life? And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, all right, let's do something new. Like, are you willing to give this up? And these are the conversations I had, and I had to wrestle with. And I'm like, this is my world. He's like, are you willing to give it up? And I was like, yeah, if you think it's best for me, I'll do it. And so his answer for me was like, yeah, it's time to let it go. I have something else for you. And so you can imagine, like with homegrown, like that affects all of our lives, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty brutal, and I love them, and still do. We still talk. And so I quit homegrown at that point because I knew my life was going in kind of a different direction than where I was with a band. And I felt like I wanted to be in full-time ministry, and that took a long time. And when I got married, I did like drywall. I sold patio furniture. So you can imagine probably a lot of musicians that can relate to this. When you're a touring musician and that's your income, by the way, it's not a ton, you know,
it's not like you're going home and
it's not a ton. You're not making it, we'd sell a lot of shows. We do really well, go around the earth, and but it's not like I was rolling or anything, you're still kind of getting by. And so you just have to make things work, right? You do drywall, you do electrical work, you do whatever you can, because your skill playing bass doesn't translate to the real world.
Yeah, exactly.
So through that, I had a relationship with the pastor. I'm at here still with the church, and he had a conversation one day with me, just inviting me, saying that he felt like God was saying that I'm the guy for the job. And he took me sight unseen. He took me not seeing that I had even sort of led worship music in that capacity at all. He just felt like the Lord said, hey, this is the right time. I felt it too. And I was like, let's do this. And and so it's cool, kind of the redemption of even all the things like I'd learned in music in the past. And I was super green back then, and really green. And but still being able to use some of those things, skills, talents, and like to like get a band together and have fun like that, to like invest in people and grow them up as musicians. Like this, having like a conversation with you, it's like talking about the real things in life that matter, like what's really going on, like what's happening at that deeper level, so that we can like get more free and stuff. Those are just conversations I'm afforded to have all the time. It's, it's a real honor to do that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, cool.
And so, I'm not personally that religious. My dad actually is in a church band as well. He plays guitar. Well, actually he plays bass, but he is a guitarist. So he's converted the other way, but he does play bass in a church band as well. I'm not personally. They
can get sometimes, man. You play guitar? Not really. All right, get on the guitar.
But yeah, I'm not like a religious person by any means. I do have, I guess spirituality of some sort, but not a conviction to a religion. But the one thing I think, people say is, I don't want to listen to this now because I've just heard Adam talk about Christ and Christianity and faith. And so this got to be a Christian album, which I don't think it is at all. I think you say the word God one time in the whole album. And I don't think it should be something that they should be concerned about, because it's what we're talking about with real life issues, right? Like just because you have a certain faith doesn't change your perspective on how you deal with things as a person, right? It's just, you come from a different lens versus them, but what does that matter? And have you ever thought about like, what does it matter to you, or does it, does the, outside perspective ever come across in your writing when you're thinking like, oh man, I'm in a punk band, I can't really write deep religious stuff into my music? Or is it just something that you just don't feel like is appropriate because you want to keep it more relatable or something?
I'm just, honestly, it's just kind of the raw feelings that I have about myself or the things happening around me. Like you said, sometimes like, God comes up in a song, like the word gets it. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly,
there's
just
a lot of anti-religious people that say the word God in their music way more than Christian music, because they're like obviously talking
and
bad
to be
about
honest,
God.
I'm not proposing this at all. But even as you saying, God, I need your help. Someone could take that and Misfit Toys and just be like, you're asking someone like, God, that's not my heart for it. But I'm just saying, it's not like a worship album per se. But for me personally, just being genuine who I am, what I'm going through, for me, that's worship. I don't have to be like telling you got to do this and you got to believe this. Like that's not the point. The point is just being honest and vulnerable with people and how that unlocks people and have conversations that actually matter. So you're right. It doesn't, no, I don't feel confined to it or feel like I have to be preachy or something like that. I'm just available, that makes sense. I'm just available. Like people want to talk. Cool. You like the music just because you like the songs and the hooks. Like I have parents and their kids love it. Their kids are singing it all the time. They just love the music. Sweet.
Yeah, exactly. Just enjoy it.
So just enjoy it. Yeah, just enjoy it. Don't overthink it. It's really helpful and you want to think about it. But like enjoy it, and maybe it'll give language for a part of your journey you're going through at some point too, where you're like, yeah, that resonates with me. That kind of helps me a little bit. That gives me a different perspective or whatever, that type of thing. But hopefully it fires on all kinds of levels,
And I feel like, it's not exactly my question to answer, but if like there's such a message of hope in the record, and at the end of the day, for you, like where does that hope lie? It lies in Jesus for us. And so if that's helpful for someone, if that, like, if someone's going through something and they're feeling hopeless, well, Adam wrote a record that is full of hope. So you have a place to look.
Yeah. That's a good way to say it. Yeah. Because it doesn't matter if you have the faith or not of whatever religion, because, there's millions of religions probably on the planet Earth. But if you're looking for hope, you can get it a lot in music. And that's, I think, beyond faith and religion, you can get that inspiration, that fire, that, the regeneration of your passion in your soul. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I started this podcast and why I've been playing music since I was 11 years old is it's a release, but it's also a regeneration. It feels like you're building something every single time you play an instrument or write a new song or, talk to people like you guys. When I get the chance to interview people, it's so good to like just have that expression and understand art from artist perspective, because if you don't understand that and you just let it pass you over, that's one thing. But if you do understand it, it can raise a whole level of new awareness for you.
Yep. Absolutely. Awesome. I love that. Yeah.
Cool. So let's talk about the name.
You're very well spoken, Isaac. So I can just agree with what I just go. Yeah. I mean,
sounds good.
Yeah. Everything you're saying is just brilliant, man. I love it.
Well, I'm so bright. Man. My daddy calls me son.
Oh. We can do the dad joke thing. We can do
that. Let's talk about the name, because when you first hear the name Radical, you think, oh man, that's lazy. Like they just took the name Radical and then I don't know the Radical. But it's
Are
not
they saying that? Who? Who's saying that? What?
Let me get their address. It's obviously there's a noun and an adjective. Like a radical is a person who is of radical extremism or whatever, like somebody who's hyper active about something. Then the phrase radical also is an adjective of like how cool it is or awesome it is. So to be a radical is actually not just two words in a row. It's two words that mean something different, but just happen to be the same actual word, right?
Yeah, that's it. And
so Isaac's smarter than I am. I did not get that. No, I learned it when we were doing a podcast, and you said that, and I was like, oh, Oh, that's cool.
We need to talk about that more then, apparently. For all those naysayers. Just kidding. Yeah, like you said, it's a description, it's a noun, right? So so it has that sense. And then also it hails back to, because I'm a child who grew in the 80s. Radical was a very familiar term, right? So there's a little bit of nostalgia there. And then also, if you look in the logo that we have, it's two R's. If you pull it apart, it's two R's that are just embedded into one another. And I made the R's so they're facing one another, just like this project is like me facing myself. And that journey. So even in that, it has meaning. It folds over on itself. It's the radical facing the radical. At that point,
deep shit right there.
Bro, that's what I'm saying. Everything I'm telling you, everything about this project, if you want to add, it has, there's, I'm not just saying this just to say it, but there's deep level and meaning behind all of it that I sort of had to labor through. But for me, it just fires on all kinds of levels, radical, and what that means for me. Yeah.
And I tried to actually I literally tried to draw that symbol with the two R's. I'm like, I don't get it. I can't draw this thing. I know what it looks like and it looks awesome. And I'm like, I can't figure out how that's two R's, but it does make sense, but I can't figure out how to draw it.
There you go. Here's the, I just saw this. Where did it go down there? There's the picture from the record. On the cover album. That's me. I grew up as a child in the desert. We go to the desert all the time. So that the record cover is me out in the desert. I felt like it looked like how I felt.
A kid in the desert. Just trying to figure it out.
There you go.
But
I can't draw on there though, can I?
That's all right. Well, you can try.
That's not going to translate. Can I even do it?
So you can whatever.
Let's see if you can draw it, because I was pretty poor at it.
I don't know if that passes the test.
That's pretty good. That's better than mine. But yeah, it's like a circle on top of like a triangle that looks like it's a person kind of as well. It's kind of it's got a lot of artistically speaking, it looks like a lot of different images if you really give it the Rorschach test.
Oh, yeah. You'd have to we'll have to do a top down sometime of you actually drawing it out so that people can see the pen strokes.
It's an actual R.
Well, that's cool. So a lot of bands are sort of taking a break from touring for pandemic reasons, but you guys also obviously had that same thing happen to you. But also, I think a lot of bands realize that there are parts of life that are equally more important than going out and spending months and months on the road for basically peanuts, as you've mentioned before, where you can stay home, create records, put out the music and still not have to travel as much. So are you guys doing any touring to support this new album beyond I think you've played like 2 or 3 shows already, but any more beyond that?
We have a show coming up on November 20th. I mean, that's a few days away. That's going to be doing like homegrown acoustic covers of the homes that I wrote in homegrown, some songs I wrote, and then some radical songs acoustic. We got a show in December coming up, but honestly, I think the plan is just to sort of grow the tri-state area a little bit, kind of a focus on California mostly, and just do some touring, partner with friends, and do videos and things like that we did with Mario with Nights Like Thieves. Like we partnered with him to do the I Feel Like I Want To videos came out, and going to be doing some collaboration with him as well, like some songwriting collab stuff with him. But not just continuing to be creative, like play shows together, because we really enjoy playing it live. I think this record plays out really well live. I think it really comes to life. And like we did for our record release, we have a whole and we'll change it from show to show as the show affords we can handle it or whatever. But we do a whole movie, like a video slideshow that's for each song. So like when we played Chain Reaction, there was a video playing behind us the whole time that we got the lyrics as we sang imagery floating around, different scenes, things that related to the music, so that the art was kind of another level. And I saw that in there's a band from Denmark called Mew, which I always see when they come through town. And I first saw that with them, the synchronized video art with the music. And I thought, man, if I could do that one day. And I finally knew it enough. I'm a, a poor man's creator in that sense. I know enough at least. That's what I wanted. Canva and simple things tools that I can use to put together videos to help match the music. But yeah, I think our aspiration is just to enjoy it.
I was gonna say it's a lot cheaper than
than
trying to recreate The Wall by Pink Floyd like they do, where they have this giant construction of all the stuff around the stage and stuff.
I haven't even seen that.
The set design.
Yeah, this is easier. Just find a good wall. Like, we just put up white sheets in the back and just project, But yeah, I think our aspirations are just to enjoy each other as friends, play shows. We enjoy being together at rehearsals, like just hanging out, laughing, talking, playing some shows, being creative online with, video ideas, song remixes, collaborations, things like that, and just seeing what happens, because this isn't like our bread and butter or whatever. We love it, passionate about it. But at the end of the day, this isn't like our financial livelihood rides on this. This is more just, man, we really enjoy this. So let's do what we can that works within healthy margins, boundaries with family and work life, and just enjoy it, Yeah.
If you ever decide to take a weekend trip to Vegas and play a show, I'll be here.
You book me a show out there and let's talk.
All right. Sounds good. I'll find something.
I'd take a trip.
Yeah, we'll take a trip. If you can get us a show booked out there, we'll come to Vegas. How's that, Isaac?
Fantastic.
Seriously.
I will, I'll get on it. I know some bands and we could probably put some together.
Let's do it.
All right. Sounds good.
Heard it here first.
Cool.
We'll make it happen. We'll make it happen.
Make it happen, man.
I'll find a way. Also, by the way, we're doing a charity golf tournament next April, so you could come out and hang out for that as well. So that's like April 22nd or 21st or something like that as well. So,
dude, give us a heads up and we'll figure it out.
Knock some balls right into the woods.
Yeah.
We don't have so many woods here. It's just rocks.
Okay.
That's actually true.
Into the houses that line the golf course.
Into the cactus.
That's a lot more. Yeah, that's a lot more likely. Well, cool. So we'll add some music, some links to the music below in the show notes and everything. Do you have anything else you'd like to plug or anything that you like to say to fans and those fans that haven't yet discovered you guys before we go today?
Yeah, well, I think our best point of connection right now is on Instagram. Love direct messages. We get back to everything. We do a lot of content there. Got a YouTube channel. Just search Radical Radical. We have 2 music videos out that I'm super proud of. One for Misfit Toys, one that just came out for I Feel Like I Want To. And be on the lookout for like some new like synthwave remixes. That's going to be fun. Local shows. Taylor's going to fall over. Yeah, man, I'm just grateful. Thank you to everybody who's even back from the old days, who's kind of joined up. Major shout out to Homegrown. For all the incredible years and even how it's sort of helped shape me and form me for what this project is now. And just looking forward to what comes next year. I feel like it's just started, honestly, it's just started.
Yeah. I mean, the record just came out, like October, right? So just last month, wasn't it?
Maybe two months ago. Maybe like a month ago. It's new. Yeah. It's new. Go listen to it.
Because I'm like, I feel like everything is like 3 months
Homegrown, a fan of Homegrown, Drive Through Record sound. It's definitely got some 2000s pop punk nostalgia, but with a little bit of modern twist, production, obviously lyrically a little bit, more introspective, personal.
Not necessarily written for high school kids, but has that same pop music style for a punk.
Unless they were high school kids like you, Isaac, then it is written for them.
Yeah. I was once in high school. How did you know that? Well, awesome. So, guys, I want to thank Radical Adam and Taylor from Radical for the awesome conversation today. And if you haven't checked out their music yet, make sure to go to the show notes below this episode to check out their music because it is awesome and radical. If you like what you heard on the show, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends on social media. You can see the full interview on our YouTube channel as well. Also, if you want to check out some of our written content or any of the products or merch that we have available, go to poweredbyrock.com to read our absolutely free rocking blog full of album reviews, interviews, and lists to keep you entertained. And find our gear as well so you can pick up some items to play and look like a rock legend. That's our show for today. We'll see you soon for the next episode. Until then, rock on.